When a heartbroken woman moves to an old mansion, she senses an eerie presence watching. Soon she meets the ghost of a man who wants to be with her, so she willingly offers herself. Late one evening, the old mansion's interior is bathed in an eerie violet glow, casting long shadows that stretch like fingers across the ancient walls and floor. Outside, Rose Parrish, wearing a simple dress and burdened with a black suitcase bag and boxes, stands beside Aunt Savannah, her eyes wide with awe. The mansion looms before them, massive, black and cold, as if it has been waiting in silence for their return. As they walk toward the entrance, the lady slows her pace, a strange sensation crawling up her spine, as though unseen eyes are watching her every move. Her aunt, noticing the hesitation, gently places a hand on her niece's back and nudges her forward with reassuring firmness. Without a word, she opens the heavy wooden door, and together they step into the heart of the mansion. Rose is struck by the sheer grandeur of the interior, her gaze caught by the sweeping staircase and dimly glowing chandeliers suspended above them like ghostly ornaments. Aunt Savannah turns with a warm, almost wistful smile and places a set of antique keys into her niece's trembling hands. With a quiet breath, she begins the tour, her voice carrying softly through the long corridors as she recounts the echoes of the past. They pass their great-grandfather's room, where the lady's fingers brush over forgotten tools and stony-eyed antique statues that seem to watch her in the dim light. The older woman's eyes gleam with pride as she speaks of leaving Los Angeles behind, thrilled to be home again in this ancestral place that breathes with rich history. Yet her smile falters ever so slightly when Rose reveals the pain of her recent breakup, her voice brittle with emotion. Aunt Savannah quickly shifts the conversation, her tone light but eyes filled with concern, attempting to lift the sorrow that clings to Rose like a second skin. As they ascend the grand staircase, the air changes halfway up, their footsteps slow and they pause, the silence pressing against their ears. The aunt's voice lowers, warning her niece of a certain room that no one dares enter, speaking of unexplained events and the lingering feeling of something unseen. To her surprise, the lady admits she feels something different, an odd familiarity with the place, as if pieces of her soul already belong to it. Her calm defiance unsettles Aunt Savannah, whose eyes briefly flick toward the closed doors above. They resume climbing, reaching the room once meant for Thomas's wife, its ornate door creaking open like a sigh from the past. The old woman gestures inside, describing its features with quiet reverence, as if the room itself might be listening. Finally, she leads Rose to her room, where a large bed sits beneath a canopy and a tall mirror looms on the wall like a silent witness. As the aunt speaks of their ancestors and shared bloodlines, the young woman listens closely. In the quiet that follows, the old lady gently asks about her niece's time in Los Angeles. Rose shares the pain and betrayal she endured, her words heavy with emotion but steady with strength. Once her story fades into silence, they continue walking through the house. They climb the stairs to the upper floor and come to a section lined with several old wooden doors, each holding secrets behind its frame. The niece reaches for one of the knobs and slowly opens the door. With hesitant curiosity inside, a wave of sadness washes over her as she gazes at an empty room cluttered with forgotten belongings. Aunt Savannah lingers in the doorway, then softly invites her to keep exploring, her tone gentle but tinged with something unspoken. But just as they do, a tall dust-covered mirror, a shadowy figure, flickers into view, unmoving and watching outside the mansion. Aunt Savannah points across the grounds to the coach house, explaining that it once held the horses and was now surrounded by gardens of fading flowers. Rose stares amazed at the estate's sheer size. Inside the coach house, they enter a smaller, more live-eating space, and the lady sits down in the modest living room, the enormity of their inheritance sinking in like stone. Sensing her niece is overwhelmed, the aunt places a comforting hand on her shoulder, offering quiet words of advice on managing the house and its many hidden burdens. After a pause, she excuses herself and leaves the lady to reflect in solitude. That evening, Rose sits in her room, antique statues carved into the walls watching like silent sentinels. While working on her computer, she suddenly feels a chill, a presence not seen but undeniably felt. Without warning, the screen flickers and a violent gust of wind surges through the room. She closes her eyes, clutching her chair as if bracing for impact. In the distance, through the swirling air, a ghostly figure materializes and hovers. Rose, still with her eyes closed, senses its presence, her heart pounding in her chest like a drum. When she opens her eyes again, the ghost has vanished, leaving behind only silence as the lady lady prepares for bed, her gaze lands on the mirror across the room where a dark shadow lingers and seems to watch her. She shivers but forces herself to dismiss it, pulling the covers up and turning away, but sleep does not come easily. Thomas's presence grows stronger and more intrusive as the night deepens. Rose wakes abruptly and finds herself staring at the mirror again. Something is wrong, she knows, but she closes her eyes and wills herself to return to sleep. At dawn she steps into the shower. Suddenly the bathroom door cracks open. Startled, she turns off the water, wraps herself in a towel and steps out cautiously to see who or what might be the later. She sits in a part of the house resembling an old study, the desk cluttered with her work. Aunt Savannah enters with a soft smile, carrying a tray of breakfast, and gently sets it down near Rose. She asks if her niece slept well, her voice casual but searching for the truth. The lady nods and answers that she did, though her words carry the weight of uncertainty. She can't quite explain what happened the night before, whether it was a dream or her fragile emotions playing tricks, but something unexplainable is unfolding around her. With quiet resolve, the old woman picks up a sketchbook that her niece had been holding earlier. As she flips through the pages, she gasps at the drawing of a man standing over a woman lying down, haunting in its detail. Her eyes widen, saying she's always there for her. In the living room she studies the drawings, flipping through them with careful fingers, but the sense of unease is growing as she reaches for her cup. She sees it, a shadow of a man cast across the tabletop, bold and unmistakable. The cup slips from her hand and crashes to the floor, her voice trembling as she tries to reason with the fear to convince herself it is only her imagination. She flees the room, not stopping until she reaches her own. Slowly the niece moves through the corridor, each step heavier than the last, the mansion watching her as she retreats into silence. As she enters the room, the lights flicker on, casting distorted shadows that make her gasp in surprise. She moves toward a mirror where the ghost often appears. Slowly she removes her top to change her reflection, seeming to hesitate, just a heartbeat behind her movements. Darkness falls over the mansion like a heavy shroud, and Rose drifts into sleep, but peace eludes her as Thomas's presence continues to press close. The flickering candle at her bedside extinguishes suddenly. Around her the ornate antiques crack softly as if stirred by invisible hands and ancient memories. From the mirror a strange force pulses outward, reflecting a ghostly image that materializes beside her on the bed. Before she can move or cry out, the ghost pulls her gently into a dream, a realm both beautiful and haunting. In the vision the lady stands before a tall ancient door, her fingers brushing against the surface. As Thomas guides her silently forward, he shows her the very antiques that decorate the house now, but here they are untouched by time, preserved in gleaming perfection. She sees intricate drawings pinned to the walls, each line filled with longing. He leads her further and she recoils at the sight of a pair of shared graves carved in stone with their names entwined. The memory shatters something inside him. Her face in the dream reminds him of the woman he once loved and lost. She is transported further into the past. Thomas appears before her, no longer just a ghost but a real man. Desperate and pleading, he confesses his love, begging her not to leave him and not to betray what they had. But something is wrong as the warmth in the scene curdles into tension and she witnesses a brutal argument, rage, pain and accusations twisting the dream into something unbearable. Just as the confrontation reaches its climax, the vision shatters. Thomas reappears, quiet now, revealing their shared grave again. With solemn eyes he whispers that he remained trapped in the dark for years, wandering, waiting for someone who reminded him of her, someone like Rose. The lady, trembling and unsure, says she doesn't understand what she's feeling, as if her own heart no longer belongs to her. The mysterious man offers to return to begin again, because the time they shared, however long ago, was more than memory. Rose wakes suddenly, her breath shallow, sweat beating on her forehead, and lets out a long shaky sigh. She looks toward the mirror where Thomas's ghostly figure still lingers in the glass, watching her silently. Beneath it the old wooden chest cracks open slightly, its lid rising as if pushed by unseen hands. Without hesitation the niece hurries to it. Inside she finds a circular case, smooth and dusty, filled with aged black and white photographs. She takes the case and hurries to the study, the old floorboards groaning beneath her steps. At the desk she opens the case carefully and begins sorting through the images one by one, each photo whispering 1,000 untold stories. Her hands tremble as she pauses on a photo of a woman, one who looks uncannily like her down to the shape of her eyes. She glances up at the ornate antiques mounted on the wall and her breath catches in her throat. Among them a framed photograph hangs unnoticed, Thomas and the woman who resembles resembles her standing together, their faces frozen in time. The room seems to tighten around her as if the house itself is remembering. Rose leaves, driven by a sudden need for answers, her heart pounding with dread as she searches for the ghost's presence. Her voice trembles with fear as she speaks aloud into the cold quiet air, asking if the spirit is near. From the silence a voice responds immediately. She turns in every direction and asks again, wondering why he lingers and why peace eludes him. The ghost's reply carries their weight of ages thick with emotion. He tells her he is bound to this place, unable to move on to the afterlife, and that so little of spirit remains. The earth no longer remembers him and he cannot accept being reduced to a mere memory. Rose, filled with a strange compassion, begs him to appear and listen to what she has to say. She apologizes to the ghost, explaining that she cannot give him the love he seeks, not in the way he longs for. Still, she offers something deeper, her physical life force. The ghost slowly manifests before her, his form becoming clearer. As he approaches, he reaches out gently, his incorporeal hand tenderly brushing against her hair. His face draws close, not cold but filled with aching reverence, and then his lips touch hers. The moment deepens into an intimate exchange in the bedroom where sorrow and desire merge. Meanwhile, outside the room, Aunt Savannah pounds on the door with growing desperation, and she frantically presses the doorbell. She calls Rose's name, her voice sharp and concerned, but there is no reply, no footsteps, no creak of hinges, only silence. Minutes pass like hours before she retrieves her key. With shaking fingers she unlocks the door and pushes it open, stepping into the quiet house with dread settling into her bones. While the two continue to make love, the old woman climbs the staircase slowly, her breath shallow as she approaches the bedroom. When she opens the door, her heart sinks and the room is empty, as if no one had been there at all. Her eyes fall upon the mirror, which glows faintly, almost imperceptibly, like a surface of still water disturbed by something beneath. She walks toward it, drawn by a force she cannot explain, and what she sees makes her gasp. Inside the mirror, the ghost and Rose are together, radiant and ethereal. Tears stream down her face as she calls out for the lady again and again, her voice echoing off the walls of the house. Her pleas grow softer, filled with grief and longing, but no answer comes from the room beyond the mirror's veil. The spirits of Rose and the ghost stand hand in hand, their eyes no longer haunted, their forms no longer bound. They have transcended the limits of flesh and brick. Together they have found peace, liberated from memory, from longing, and from the mansion that once held them.